All right. Good morning, everyone. We are now on the record and live streaming, and I am calling this evidentiary hearing to order. My name is Andrew French, Chair of the Kansas Corporation Commission, serving as presiding officer for this hearing. We don't yet have Commissioner Annie Keither, but I understand she will be joining as soon as possible. It's also my understanding Commissioner Keene will not be joining us, and he is recused in this matter. This is docket number 25 CONS 3236 CMSC, captioned in the matter of the request to transfer wells from Quito Inc. to Emerson Operating LLC. We do apologize for the brief delay. It was, of course, technology related, but we are ready to begin at this time. So I am going to start with the entries of appearance for the parties, and I'll start with commission staff.
Good morning, Chair French. Kelsey Morris on behalf of Commission staff.
Good morning, Mr. Marsh. For Quito.
John Forrest on behalf of Quito Inc.
All right. And for Emerson Operating. Oh, Ms. Aspen, you're muted.
Thank you. Molly Aspen on behalf of Emerson Operating LLC.
All right. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Next, we will move to notice. Does staff have a recommendation regarding notice provided for this hearing?
Yes. On June 20th, 2025, the presiding officer provided notice of this hearing by filing an order setting evidentiary hearing in this matter for Wednesday, July 16th, 2025, beginning at 9:00 a.m. via the Zoom video conferencing platform. The presiding officer's order was properly served on the parties, who all appear to be in attendance today. Staff recommends the commission find that notice is proper and that the commission has the jurisdiction to hear this matter at this time and place.
All right. Are there any objections to notice?
None from Quito Inc.
All right.
None from Emerson.
Thank you. Hearing no objections and based on staff's recommendation, I will find that notice is proper and the commission has jurisdiction over this proceeding at this time and place. Now, just a couple preliminary matters, and then I'll discuss the procedure for the hearing. Before I ask if the parties have any preliminary matters, just want to run through a couple standard reminders. We've already wrestled with some technical matters, but please remember we're conducting this over Zoom. If something goes wrong, please just ask to go off the record. We can recess and resolve the technical issue and then go back on the record. Second, we do ask witnesses to keep their microphones off or muted when they're not scheduled to talk. If everyone would also please mute your cell phones, phones in your offices, other electronic devices, that would be appreciated. Third, so the parties are aware if the commission needs to consult among ourselves for something like an evidentiary ruling, we'll go off the record and the commission will enter a Zoom, what's called a Zoom breakout room to discuss, and then we'll return and go back on the record. Fourth, because we're doing this on Zoom, just please be very careful to identify exactly what you're referring to when you're discussing pre-filed testimony, exhibits, or other documents. We do have copies of everything on hand, I believe, so we should be able to follow along if everything is properly identified. With that, do the parties have any other preliminary matters to take up? Hearing none, I'm going to move to the procedure for the hearing. So in regard to the procedure for the hearing, parties will typically be allowed to make opening statements. After opening statements, we will have the examination of witnesses, and after the direct examination of each witness, there'll be an opportunity for cross-examination, and then commissioner questions and redirect. Any further examination after redirect would just be at the discretion of the commission. Following witness examination, we will allow closing statements, and we will arrange for the filing of post-hearing briefs if the parties believe that is necessary, and then we will conclude the hearing. So with that, we will move to opening statements. I don't believe that you established any time limits at the pre-hearing conference, but I would just ask folks to be succinct. I don't expect to limit anybody as long as we're moving along. So we will begin with opening statements, and I'm going to start with staff. So Mr. Marsh, if you would like to begin.
Thank you, Chair French. Today, we are before you regarding a request for change of operator or a T1 form, which has been submitted requesting the transfer wells on 3 leases from Quito Inc. to Emerson Operating LLC. The main thing that the commission needs to know is that this transaction was clearly not made at arm's length. Previously, we appeared before the commission regarding T1 forms between Quito and a company named Thor Operating in a separate attempt to transfer wells from Quito to another operator. In that matter, the commission determined that there was no doubt that Mr. McCann and Kansas Production Company would continue to pull the strings regarding the operatorship, excuse me, of the leases at issue, and that McCann could not do through Thor what he cannot do through Quito. That determination should be no different in this matter, as the agreement between Kansas Production Company and Emerson Operating is effectively the same as the agreement between Quito and Thor. This is effectively a second bite at the apple for McCann and Kansas Production Company to operate wells through somebody else. Ultimately, the evidence in this matter shows that Emerson Operating's operation of these leases would effectively be totally reliant on Mr. McCann's money, equipment, and direction. And we would request that the T1s be denied. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Marsh. Next, Mr. Horst for Quito.
Thank you, Commissioner French. Although the statutory or regulatory source of commission staff's authority to review and approve or oppose transfer of operator responsibility may be obscure, the commission has in prior administrative hearings considered that it exists. Without necessarily conceding that such review authority exists, to the extent staff may exercise that authority, surely it must be exercised in a manner which is consistent with and confined to the existing statutes and regulations governing the transfer of operator responsibility. Staff's opposition to transfer of operator responsibility from Quito Inc. to Emerson Operating LLC is based upon concerns relating to the contractual and or economic relationship between the owner of the three leases being transferred, Kansas Production Company Inc., and their owner/principal, Mark W. McCann, and the new operator, Emerson Operating LLC, whose principal is Joe Harper. However, there is no statutory or regulatory authority which specifies the terms and conditions of the contract, which in this case is the operating agreement between KPC and Emerson, as an element, factor, criteria, or condition applicable to the authority to transfer operation of the leases. What the evidence will show in this case is that staff's opposition to transfer is based upon fear and speculation that Emerson will be unable to operate the leases in a manner that is compliant with the applicable statutes and regulations. Speculation that Emerson will be unable to perform due to economic dependence on an entity controlled by Mark McCann. What the evidence will show is that there are no express or statutory or regulatory provisions, no concrete criteria which staff can identify, which prohibit the transfer of operator responsibility in this case. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Horst. And finally, Ms. Aspen for Emerson. And you are on mute again.
I will get onto that next time. Thank you. And I will keep it very short because I don't need to repeat everything that Mr. Horst just said on behalf of, so I will just adopt and incorporate the arguments and what he set forth in his opening statement.
All right. Thank you. All right. Let me go. I'm going to go off the record just a second because I do see in the chat. So we are off the record and in recess. I see in the chat that it looks like Commissioner Keither has joined and is watching the hearing in our executive director's office. Is that correct, Celeste?
Yes, that's correct. You want to say?
All right.
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, we have proof. Very, very good. So just so everyone knows, we do have two commissioners here watching and available to participate. So just wanted to confirm that. And IT, if you are able to get Commissioner Keither's computer up and running in her office, that might be great. I don't know if we have the bandwidth to do that.
I just talked to him on the phone and she's working on getting logged into the laptop. So
all right. Very well. Glad we've got you, Commissioner Keither. With that, we are now back on the record. All right. Proceeding from the opening statements, we are now ready to move to the examination of witnesses. We will start with staff's witnesses, and Mr. Marsh, you may call your first witness.
Commissioner French, pardon me for interrupting, Mr. Marsh, but can we determine that Mr. McCann is still joined in this meeting? He's been calling my office.
Okay, we're going to go back off the record again. So we are off the record. Mr. McCann, we can see you and we can see that you're on mute. Are you able to unmute and speak to us?
And
I'm
he
going
may
to.
need,
I'm going to press the button ask to unmute, see if that helps.
he may need to uncover the camera, which is why we can't actually see him.
Mr. McCann, I think you're unmuted now. Go ahead and say something.
Hello, can you hear me?
There, we can hear you. Yes, we still cannot see you. Do you have your video? Do you have your camera covered at the moment?
Some of the
Earlier,
laptops have a little slider that covers it right on where the camera is at the top of the laptop screen.
but
Yeah, your
John,
video is on.
John Force said earlier, he could see me.
What's that, Mr. McCann?
John Horst had said earlier that he could see me.
I think that was Chair French, and I think he was referencing being able to see that you're on the computer here. We actually cannot see you at the moment.
No, actually, they called John Forst's office and he told his assistant that he could see me.
Okay, well, at any rate, we can hear Mr. McCann and Chair French. You can do what you please with that.
Yeah, I think we can proceed. You're here with us and we can hear you. Hopefully you can go on and off of mute. If you see the audio button at the bottom, you can just click that on and off to go on and off of mute. And if you, as we proceed, if you're able to find a way to get your camera turned on, that would be great as well. But you can participate just through audio if that's what we're able to get. Let's see. Yes, I do think since we have Mr. McCann, I am going to, Mr. McCann, if you can mute yourself again, that would be good. Great, wonderful. I think we can then proceed, and then we'll if we need to get Mr. McCann off of mute later, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Okay, Mr. Horst, I think we've got you squared away. We've got your client on here, so.
My
Let
apologies.
us, no, that's fine. We want to make sure everybody's able to participate. With that, let us continue to proceed with the examination of witnesses. And Mr. Marsh, you may call your first witness. Oh, hold on. Mr. Myers reminds me that we are not on the record yet. So we are now back on the record. And Mr. Marsh, you may proceed and call your first witness.
Thank you, Chair French. Commission staff calls Nancy Borst.
All right, Ms. Borst, since we don't have a court reporter sitting in with us, I'm going to swear you in. If you'd please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will give today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Marsh.
Thank you. Ms. Borst, please state your full name for the record.
Nancy D. Borst.
Ms. Borst, by whom and what capacity are you employed?
I'm employed by the Conservation Division of the Kansas Corporation Commission as an administrative specialist in the legal and licensing departments.
Are you the same Nancy Borst who caused to be filed in this docket testimony consisting of 4 pages and 2 exhibits on April 11th, 2025?
I am.
Do you have any corrections to make to your testimony?
I do not.
Do you swear the answers contained in your pre-filed testimony are true to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Thank you. At this time, staff moves for Ms. Nancy Borst's pre-filed testimony and exhibits to be admitted into the formal record.
All right, are there any objections?
No objections.
Hearing none, the reference testimony will be admitted. With that, Mr. Marsh.
Thank you. Commission staff tenders a witness for cross-examination.
All right, thank you. Let's see, who do I have first on my list? Quito, do you have any cross-examination for this witness?
No questions of this witness.
Okay. And Emerson Operating, any questions for this witness?
No questions.
All right. I do not have any questions for this witness. Commissioner Keither, do you have any questions?
Her account is joining just now.
Ah. We'll put her on the spot right as soon as she gets in.
Okay, here we go.
Annie, I hate to put, yeah, I'm so glad you're able to join and we can see you now. I hate to put you on the spot. We have Miss Borst, and the parties have not had any cross-examination for her. I have no questions for her. Do you have any questions for Miss Borst?
No, I don't.
Okay, very well. Well, then I assume there is no need for redirect. So at this time, Miss Borst, we do thank you for your testimony and you may step down virtually.
Thank you.
With that, Mr. Marsh, you may call your next witness.
Thank you. The commission staff calls Ryan Hoffman.
Good morning, Mr. Hoffman. Could you please raise your right hand for me? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will give today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Marsh?
Thank you. Director Hoffman, please state your full name for the record.
Ryan A. Hoffman,
And by whom and what capacity are you employed?
the Kansas Corporation Commission, the Director of the Conservation Division.
Are you the same Ryan Hoffman who caused to be filed in this docket testimony consisting of 8 pages and 5 exhibits on April 11th, 2025?
Yes, I am.
Do you have any corrections to make to your testimony?
No.
Do you swear the answers contained in your pre-filed testimony are true to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Thank you. At this time, staff moves for the admission of Mr. Ryan Hoffman's pre-filed testimony and exhibits into the formal record.
All right, are there any objections?
No objections.
No objections.
Okay, hearing none, the reference testimony will be admitted.
Thank you. Staff tenders witness for cross-examination.
All right, thank you. Mr. Horst?
Mr. Hoffman, I believe you previously testified that in your opinion, KSA 55-155 subsection C is not ambiguous. Is that correct?
That is correct.
In the present case, is Emerson Operating LLC qualified to hold an operator's license in the state of Kansas?
I think the answer to that question is yes, they are, absent any Quito wells. If you were to look at when we granted them a license, they didn't have any wells.
And the basis for staff's opposition to transfer of the wells on the 3 leases in this case is based upon the economic and contractual relationship between Kansas Production Company, Inc. and Emerson Operating LLC. Is that correct?
It's broader than that, but that's the heart of it. I mean, it goes back to what I mentioned before. If you take this precedent or set this as a precedent, I mean, what's to stop any operator from taking their good assets and giving them to somebody else just so that they can absolve themselves of their plugging liabilities or their compliance duties, really? Because that's the reason that, I mean, Quito doesn't have a license because of their compliance history or their compliance issues. If they could get themselves into compliance, this wouldn't be necessary.
How long have you been the director of the Conservation Division?
You're trying to make me feel old on YouTube. Actually, I believe 12 years.
You were the director when KSA 55-179 was amended in 2021, I believe.
You are correct.
And did the commission support that amendment?
Yes.
Is there anything in KSA 55-179 that prohibits a past operator from transferring some of its leases, but not all of its leases?
No. But it does not absolve them of plugging responsibility either, because the wells have to be in compliance for them to cut off that responsibility for plugging the wells. And I think here the wells are not in compliance because they hadn't been operated. His license has been suspended for over a year now.
Where in your pre-filed testimony do you address non-compliance of the wells as a basis for opposition to the transfer?
I don't. In my, you asked a question that was outside the scope of what I testified on. You asked about 55-179. So,
Okay, well, back on your pre-filed testimony, how does that address any compliance issues with respect to existing wells?
well, it goes to the concern that if Mr. McCann can't keep himself in compliance, how is he going to be the sole benefactor of this other operator who is really completely reliant on him to be in compliance?
Are there express statutory or regulatory provisions that address this concern you're raising on behalf of commission staff?
Sure. 155C says that the applicant has to demonstrate to the commission's satisfaction that they're in compliance with all rules, regulations, and orders of the commission. And then then it lists the other parties that also have to be there.
And in this case, you're looking at Quito as the applicant?
Well, I think based on the relationship that's demonstrated in the text messages, the financial relationship, that this is Thor and Quito in another different clothing. It's the same situation.
And Mr. Hoffman, the basis of that conclusion that you're reaching is the operating agreement between the parties?
I said also the text messages, the bank statements, all of it in totality.
The bank statements and text messages have been communicated at a time when Emerson Operating LLC has not been approved as an operator of these wells on these leases. Is that correct?
I'm not certain as to the exact date. I think if the bank records were from February of this year, and they got a license in, I believe it was November of last year. So it would have been during that time frame. They would have been a licensed operator without wells on their license.
They would have been an operator without wells on their license, and none of the wells included in the T1 forms that have been submitted have yet been transferred from Quito Inc. to Emerson Operating LLC. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So we're talking about email messages between Mr. McCann and Mr. Harper that are not necessarily directed toward Emerson Operating LLC acting as an operator of any of these wells.
Yes.
And at least at this point, any physical contact that Emerson Operating LLC has had with any wells on Quito's inventory has been in the capacity of a contractor to Quito Inc., correct?
Yes.
Okay. If the commission approves the transfer of operator responsibility, who would commission staff look to for compliance purposes in this
Mr.
case?
Harper.
Mr. Harper and Emerson Operating LLC, correct?
Correct.
And would commission staff consider availability of finances to Emerson Operating LLC as a mitigating factor if it failed to comply?
I don't know if it would be mitigating, but it's certainly something that we consider when we license operators, and that's why we make them put up financial assurance. And here, Mr. McCann paid for the financial assurance for Emerson Operating. So, and the operating agreement says that he will pay for everything. So,
and again, are there any statutory or regulatory provisions that prevent a third party from paying the financial responsibility fee?
no,
Are there any statutes or regulations that prohibit a third party from paying costs of operation?
no,
Does commission staff grade the contractual arrangement between an operator and a third party owner of an oil and gas lease in some manner?
no.
I don't think I have any further questions of this witness. Thank you, Mr. Hoffman.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Horst. Ms. Aspen, any additional cross-examination?
Just quickly, Mr. Hoffman, Emerson's able to operate in Kansas, correct? Has been approved to operate in Kansas?
Yes, they have, but they don't have any wells to operate.
Okay. Have there ever been any compliance issues with Emerson?
Not at this time.
Okay. I don't have any other questions, Chair French.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Keither, any questions for Mr. Hoffman? And you're on mute now if you are speaking.
So usually being off. I don't have any questions. I guess for just absolute clarification from Mr. Hoffman, you're saying that we've been here before with this company.
Correct.
And you don't see any difference except the end game name is different.
Well, there are some changes. There are some minor changes to the operating agreement that they've called out in their testimony about no limit on regulatory compliance, financing, and that type of, and that the non-operator shall have no business in the day-to-day operations of Emerson Operating. So I think that it was almost like, I think the term we used in my testimony was whack-a-mole. It's like, well, we tried something with Thor that didn't work, so we've made some changes and we're coming back and trying to get another end round to circumvent the statutes.
Okay, that's what I was after. Thank you.
And to be clear, Commissioner Keither, I shouldn't say circumvent the statutes. I should say circumvent the outcome of the last hearing, that if there's a way to not get Quito into compliance, how can we operate these wells still?
Great,
Sorry.
thank you.
All right. I just have a couple questions for you, Mr. Hoffman. Just on that last line of questioning from Mr. Horst, I think he asked you whether there's anything in statute or regulation that prohibits a third party paying for all the financial obligations of an operator. And I just want to make sure I understand staff's position correctly. It's not the fact that there is a third party paying for the financial obligations. It's the fact that it's a specific third party, and the totality of the circumstances suggests that this specific arrangement looks like it is an attempt to circumvent compliance obligations. Is that staff's position?
Yes, it is, Chair French. I mean, those types of operating agreements occur very frequently in the oil and gas industry. Rarely do we see them where an operator is not in compliance, and that's the main issue, is where it's the non-compliance of the operator who's trying to transfer the wells.
I think the other question I had for you, now I got to get back to your testimony. I think what I'm struggling with is, I hope this isn't too rambling, but I think staff doesn't take issue with the fact that Mr. McCann and Quito are planning to transfer wells. They take issue with the arrangement surrounding that and the sort of the elements of control that he might maintain over the new operating company, and so it has this appearance of circumventing compliance obligations. And you list a few things in your testimony that would show specific types of control that staff is concerned about. I'm just wondering, I mean, it does seem to be a totality of the evidence, feeling, but is there a bright line where staff would draw the line in these cases? Because this, certainly it's happened before. It would happen again, I assume, if we were to allow this. And so what's the bright line that you think we should apply in making that determination of does it look like there's a circumvention of commission compliance obligations?
This is really, I think, the second time maybe we've been down this road. And in terms of establishing a bright line, I don't know that I can say clearly yet what that would be, but I guess in my mind, I would prefer not to go down this road. I think that what we could do is have Mr. McCann focus on bringing Quito into compliance, to pay his outstanding fines, to remedy the outstanding violations, and then we wouldn't have to worry about whether or not he's trying to circumvent any compliance issues.
So whether it's Quito or some other operator that is out of compliance, if there is an attempted transfer of sort of a good amount of good assets, I guess, as it's been characterized in some of the testimony, and that operator remains out of compliance, staff is always going to have to scrutinize to see what that relationship is with the new operator. Is that, and you're just going to have to look at sort of the factual situation around that transfer?
I think it's essentially, if you go back to the amendment from that I cited in my testimony back to the 90s, it's been a concern for time immemorial. I think that operators are going to be able to take their good assets and move them so that they're not burdened by their compliance issues or burdened by their liabilities.
Okay.
And we're not the only state that struggled with it.
Okay. Well, I think that's all I have for you, Mr. Hoffman. I appreciate you clarifying some of your testimony with that. Commissioner Keither, if you didn't have anything additional, we will just move to Mr. Marsh for any redirect.
Thank you, Chair French. Director Hoffman, I know that Ms. Aspen had asked you if Emerson Operating has had any compliance issues. Can there be compliance issues if Emerson Operating doesn't have any wells on its license?
Theoretically, yes. I mean, they could drill a well without a permit. They could. I'm trying to think, Mr. Marsh. They could let their license expire, but even then, if they don't have any wells on their license, that's not really a violation. So I think the primary one that comes to mind at first would be to drill a well without a permit.
Yeah. And then I know, Mr. Horst talked to you about the relationship between Kansas Production Company and Emerson Operating while regarding the text message communications. Do you believe that those communications between Mr. McCann and Mr. Harper kind of establish a pattern of how the leases will be operated if the T1 forms are processed?
I believe that they do establish a pattern. It shows that they're so intertwined that to just say, okay, all of a sudden magically these T1s have been approved, now we're going to start doing things completely different, I think is a stretch.
And did Quito have an active license when these text message communications occurred?
No.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
All right. We're moving fairly quickly, so I do want to offer an opportunity. Mr. Horst or Miss Aspen, is there any need for additional recross?
I do have a recross, Commissioner French.
Okay, please proceed.
Mr. Hoffman, are you aware that Quito has filed an application for a new operator's license?
I am.
And are you aware that staff opposes issuing a new operator's license to Quito?
I'm aware that Quito remains out of compliance with the amount that's outstanding and the other penalty order. So that's, yes, staff opposes because we would oppose any operator that had that compliance record trying to get a new license.
So what is it that Quito Inc. needs to do to become compliant?
I believe they owe roughly $16,000 to the commission, and there are at least I want to say there are several dockets where they are out of compliance.
So has commission staff in any way reached out to Quito to advise it as to what it specifically needs to do to come into compliance?
Specifically, like called up Mr. McCann and talked to him
Yes.
about what he needs to do? No, we don't do
Yes.
that for any operators. They have the paper penalty orders that tell them what they need to do, and they have the penalties that are assessed within those penalty orders.
You're aware that Quito has made written request for compliance agreement?
Yes.
Yes. And that staff has denied or declined to participate in any discussions concerning a compliance agreement for Quito?
I am, and that is something that the commission, when they established the compliance agreement process, Mr. Horst, you can go back and watch. There was a YouTube on that way back early on in my 12-year tenure, where the commissioners talked about allowing this type of process, and they were big on allowing for staff discretion there, that they didn't want it to be something that was forced on staff, that staff would be able to choose the operators who came to them willingly, generally in advance of penalty orders or formal compliance actions by the commission, so that they could bring themselves into compliance without being forced into compliance.
Mr. Hoffman, isn't it correct that there were no specific notices of violation or penalty orders issued in the case in which the commission initially declined to renew Quito's operator's license?
I'm going to object at this time. I think we're kind of getting outside the scope of Director Hoffman's testimony, outside the scope of redirect.
We are getting a little outside of it, but I'll give a little leash. Mr. Hoffman's the director of the division. To the extent he's got knowledge of these matters, I'll let him answer. But Mr. Horst, just make sure we don't go too far outside and be able to tie it back to the issue here. But go ahead.
Could you be more specific, Mr. Horst? That we've got several compliance matters with Mr. McCann, so if you could be more specific as to which one.
And I don't expect that, Mr. Hoffman, you've committed all of this information to memory. So this is not a memory test.
Good, because I can tell you it's not getting better.
The commission found, let me rephrase the question. The commission found in its final order on February 9 in docket 23, I think it's 3115, that Quito was not in compliance, but it didn't specifically find any statute or regulation that Quito was in violation of. And that suspension was for a period of 1 year. Now we're past the 1 year period, and because of subsequent events that have occurred, the commission staff is now opposing an issuance of a new license at Quito. Is that a correct summary of where we're at in terms of Quito's license?
If your summary includes that they're still out of compliance with those prior dockets, yes.
Okay, very good. I don't think I have any further questions of Mr. Hoffman.
All right, Ms. Aspen, any additional recross?
No recross.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Keither, I assume no additional questions popped up for you, neither for me. Mr. Marsh, any redirect?
Nothing for me, Chair Branch.
All right, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Hoffman.
Thank you.
We appreciate your testimony today. You may virtually step down. All right, staff, you may call your next witness.
Thank you, Chair Branch. Commission staff calls Dwayne Sims.
Here he comes. All right, Mr. Sims, if you can go off of mute and raise your right hand for me. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will give today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Marsh.
Thank you. Mr. Sims, can you please state your full name for the record?
Dwayne Allen Sims,
And by whom and what capacity are you employed?
the Kansas Corporation Commission in the Conservation Division of District 3 as the UIC coordinator and the ECRS.
Are you the same Dwayne Sims who caused to be filed in this docket testimony consisting of 5 pages and 2 exhibits on April 11th, 2025?
I am.
Do you have any corrections to make to your testimony?
I do not.
Do you swear the answers contained in your pre-filed testimony are true to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
At this time, staff moves for Dwayne Sims' pre-filed testimony and exhibits to be admitted into the formal record.
No objection.
No objection.
All right, we will admit the reference testimony.
Thank you. Staff tenders the witness for cross-examination.
All right, Mr. Horst, the witness is yours if you have cross-examination.
Mr. Sims, attached to your pre-filed direct testimony was an exhibit DS2, which consisted of 5 forms U7 casing mechanical integrity tests. Do you have those in front of you?
I do not. I left them in my other room. Could I get those real fast and I can come right back?
Sure, that's fine with me.
Or we can pull them up. I don't care either way.
John, do you have those ready to go and pull up? Or
I think so, yes. Give me a moment.
all right, we're gonna have Mr. Myers pull them up so everybody can see the documents.
I have
and
them
the
now.
reference.
Somebody brought them to me.
Great. You got friends.
Yes.
Let's pause for just a moment. I think it would be helpful for the rest of us. Yeah. All right. Go ahead. Please proceed, Mr. Horst.
Mr. Sims, who prepares the casing mechanical integrity test form U7?
Who prepares the form?
Yes.
Field staff in this matter.
On page 1 of 5 of exhibit DS2, who's shown as the operator of this well?
Quito Inc.
Okay. And it's license number 33594, is that correct?
What the form says, yes.
And toward the bottom of the form, there is shown an operator's representative, is that correct? So was his title filled in by field staff as supervisor?
Yes,
In your pre-filed testimony, Mr. Sims, you expressed concern that Mr. McCann was exercising control or attempting to exercise control over the sequence of MIT testing. Is that correct?
what page and line are you just talking about?
Hold on just a second. Page 4, question starting at line 9, and the answer starting at line 11 and through line 17.
What was your initial question again? I'm sorry.
So you're expressing concern in your pre-filed direct testimony that Mr. McCann will attempt to exercise control over Mr. Harper and operating the wells. Is that correct?
I do have concern with that, yes.
But in the context of these U7s, wasn't Quito Inc. the operator?
Yes,
And isn't it the operator that's supposed to exercise control over the operation of the wells?
yes.
So how does that have any bearing upon transfer of these wells from Quito Inc. to Emerson Operating LLC?
Because Mark will continue to express concern, or Mark will still continue to tell him how to operate the wells, just like he always has.
And that's the basis of your opinion, is that Mark expressed an opinion or made comments about the sequence of the MIT testing.
Mark has done that ever since I've known Mark. Um,
Well, where do you say that in your pre-filed testimony that Mark's done that ever since you've known him?
I don't say ever since I've known him, but I say right here is it similar to decisions that were previously made when the company named Thor Operating was conducting work on some of Mark's leases for Quito Inc. and the license had been denied by the commission. I mean, when I was dealing with Scott Getz, it was the same way. Scott would call Mark on every decision, and he wouldn't do nothing until Mark okayed the decision. Just like Dad relayed to me, it was happening with Emerson and Joe Harper and Quito and Mark McCann.
By the way, you weren't personally involved in any of these communications on the MITs, is that correct?
I was not.
And what your testimony involves is basically what Mr. Triboulet has told you about the communications.
I did communication with that on every MIT. With the case of Quito, where these got NOV letters. Any NOV letters we send out, I have constant communication with staff about what went on in the field, whether they passed, how it went, what was the demeanor of the operator, the demeanor of the contractors that were on site. I mean, I have constant communication with staff about these issues when they get NOV letters sent out on them.
If the commission approves transfer of the wells to Emerson Operating LLC as the operator, who will staff look to for compliance?
We will look towards Emerson.
And will any communications between Mark McCann as the owner of Kansas Production Company, Inc. and Mr. Harper have a bearing on whether Emerson Operating LLC is in compliance?
Could you restate that question? I think I heard it, but
Let me rephrase it. Aren't these independent issues? Isn't the question of whether Emerson Operating LLC is in compliance independent of any communications between Mark McCann and Joe Harper?
I think Mark is going to be I think Joe is going to be very reliant on Mark's money. So any communication between them is going to be very crucial, I think, on whether they're in compliance.
I don't think you understand my question, Mr. Sims. So listen carefully. Again, you indicated that staff would be looking to Emerson Operating LLC for compliance if the wells are transferred to it, correct?
Yes.
And will staff will staff pay any attention to whether there are communications between Mr. McCann and Mr. Harper relative to whether Emerson Operating LLC is operating the wells in compliance with applicable statutes and regulations?
If you're asking if we're going to reach out to Mark, no, because the wells will be on Emerson's license.
Yeah, and what difference does that make?
Makes a lot when he's being funded by Kansas Production.
What difference does that make to whether Emerson is or is not in compliance?
I believe I just stated that if the funds aren't there, he will not be in compliance.
I don't think I have any further questions, this witness. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Aspen.
Mr. Sims, you made several comments about Emerson being reliant on Mark's money, being funded by Kansas Production. Do you have any direct knowledge of Emerson's financial situation?
Other than the financial statements that they turned in, that's all I have.
Okay, no further questions.
All right. Commissioner Keither, any questions for Mr. Sims? You're on mute, but I think I saw a head shaking no. I also have no questions for Mr. Sims. Mr. Marsh, any redirect?
A couple questions, if I may, Chair French. Mr. Sims, did Quito have an active license when directing Mr. Harper to conduct MIT test?
They had a suspended license.
Right. Was the license inactive?
Yes.
Okay. So, and their license would be inactive if these T1s are processed and being operated by Emerson Operating, correct?
Yes.
Is it common for, earlier you talked about, in response to one of Mr. Horse's questions, you talked about how it's common for field staff to communicate with you on a routine basis about what's going on in the field, especially with MIT matters. Is that part of your job as UIC program manager?
Yes.
Thank you. No further questions.
All right. Is there any need for recross?
None from Quito.
Okay.
No.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Sims, for your testimony. You may virtually step down.
Thank you.
Staff, you may call your final witness.
Thank you, Chair French. Commission staff calls Troy Russell. And if we can update the name for Mr. Russell. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Russell. If you would please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will give today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Marsh?
Thank you. Mr. Russell, please state your full name for the record.
Troy A. Russell.
Mr. Russell, by whom and what capacity are you employed?
Employed by the Conservation Division of the Kansas Corporation Commission as the District 3 Office Supervisor and Professional Geologist.
Are you the same Troy Russell who caused to be filed in this docket rebuttal testimony consisting of 6 pages and 1 exhibit on May 23rd, 2025?
Yes.
Do you have any corrections to make to your testimony?
Just the address, it says 137 West, it should be 137 East 21st Street on line 2, page 2.
Thank you. Do you have any other corrections to make to your testimony?
No, sir.
Do you swear the answers contained in your pre-filed testimony are true to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
Thank you. At this time, staff moves for the admission of Mr. Troy Russell's pre-filed testimony and exhibit to be included in the formal record.
No objection.
All right, not hearing any objections, we will admit the reference testimony. Please proceed.
Thank you. Staff to stand as the witness for cross-examination.
All right, Mr. Horst, do you have any cross-examination for Mr. Russell?
Yes. Mr. Russell, on page 5, lines 11 to 14 of your pre-filed rebuttal testimony, you state that it's your opinion that there's no distinguishable difference between Quito, Kansas Production Company, and Emerson. Is that correct?
Correct.
And the basis of that opinion is the economic dependence of Emerson on a company owned or controlled by Mr. McCann?
Yes.
In your capacity as the director of District 3, have you become familiar with the statutes, rules, and regulations governing oil and gas operations in the state of Kansas?
Yes, not to the extent of Director Hoffman.
Are you familiar with any statute, rule, or regulation that addresses the economic relationship between the owner of the oil and gas lease and the operator as a factor in bearing upon propriety of transfer of operator responsibility from a past operator to a new operator?
I would defer that to, I believe Director Hoffman answered that question. If not exactly, if you could differentiate between the two questions, I will try. But I do, when we look to the regulations, we get much direction as far as the interpretation and how we shall proceed from legal staff and from the director.
Are you contending that Emerson Operating LLC is in some manner, well, let me withdraw that question. Start again. Do you agree that Emerson Operating LLC is a separate legal entity apart from Quito Inc. and Kansas Production Company Inc.?
Yes.
And that Mark McCann and Joe Harper are natural persons distinguishable from Quito Inc., Kansas Production Company Inc., and Emerson Operating LLC?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
I'll try and rephrase it more simply. Aren't each of these 5 entities, 2 natural persons and 3 artificial entities, separate persons under our statute governing oil and gas operations?
I believe there are 3 separate LLCs or companies, and then the individuals that we're talking about are Mr. McCann and Mr. Harper.
Aren't you making a legal conclusion that there's no distinguishable difference between these legal entities in your pre-file testimony?
No, I think mine would be more related to operational history and the technical deal. It seems that the decisions that normally, an operator would be able to make and carry out independently. Does not seem to have that independence in this. They seem to rely heavily on that interaction with Mark.
And in the case before the commission this morning, there is absolutely no history of the interaction between any entities owned by Mr. McCann and any entities owned by Mr. Harper relative to operation of the wells on the 3 leases that we're talking about. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, but would you repeat that, John? I'm not quite sure I understand the full context of that question.
Do you agree that the wells on these 3 leases have not been transferred to Emerson Operating LLC at this time?
Correct.
And that therefore there is no history or track record of interaction between the owner of the leases, Kansas Production Company, Inc., and the operator, Emerson Operating LLC?
Well, I believe there has been some, I guess, planning or correspondence determining, how to proceed or which wells to test first, how to test them, so on, is my understanding.
And is any planning or correspondence resulted in Emerson Operating LLC failing to comply with a statute, rule, or regulation of the commission?
I do not believe they have failed because they don't have any wells on their license as of yet.
On page 5 of your pre-filed testimony, starting at line 17 through page 6, ending at line 4, you opine that the operating agreement between Kansas Production Company and Emerson will not be long lasting. Are there changes or other matters that, in your opinion, would make the operating agreement long lasting between KPC and Emerson?
Again, are you asking what they could do to improve that agreement to make it a longer
Yes.
durable?
Yes.
Well, I think initially they probably, as has been said, to start out, it would be best if we'd get the wells in compliance and everybody be in compliance with the outstanding commission orders and resolve those first would be a good start. And then, I think at that point would be based on Mr. Emerson's record and if he's got a license and go from that point on. But if he's got to take over or, if somehow some reason these wells were transferred, then he's starting out in the hole because there are already compliance issues prior to him even, getting them on his license or getting it on Emerson's license.
So if I understand your answer correct, there are no specific changes or revisions to the operating agreement that would, in your view, improve the relationship between the parties or comfort you as the District 3 supervisor?
I would defer as far as the operation agreements and the legal parts with the legal staff. It would, if we had some track record or there was some other, operating history where they, just weren't taking over Quito wells or putting other wells on their license and operating for multiple entities, that would be at least a good start as far as to assess, what their success might or might not be.
I think that's all the questions I have of this witness.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Horace. Ms. Aspen?
I have no further questions.
Okay. Commissioner Keither, any questions for Mr. Russell? All right. I also have no questions for you, Mr. Russell. Mr. Marsh, do you have any redirect?
I don't believe so.
Okay. All right. Well, no commissioner questions, no redirect, so I'm not going to offer up cross. So at this time, Mr. Russell, we do thank you for your testimony, and you may step down.
Thank you, Chair French.
All right, we have concluded with all of staff's witnesses. Looks like we've got Quito and Emerson yet to go. We've been going for a little over an hour now. Why don't I give everyone just a short break? You can take a bio break or refill your coffee. And we will, so let's recess for, I've got 10:27. Let's recess until 10:35 and we'll reconvene at that time. So the commission is now in recess. We're off the record. All right, I've got 10:35. I see counsel for Quito. I see counsel for Emerson. I see staff's counsel. I see Commissioner Keither. So I think we are ready to reconvene. So at this time, we are back on the record for the evidentiary hearing in this proceeding. And we are ready for Quito to call its witness. Mr. Horst, if you would like to proceed. And you are on mute.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes, we
Call
hear
Mark
you.
call Mark McCann.
All right, Mr. McCann, we still cannot see you. Let's try real quickly. There should be a button that says video in your lower left. Are you able to turn your video on?
Zoom is showing his videos on. I think there's something covering it.
Okay. Actually, and also Mr. McCann,
He's muted.
yeah, we need you to get off of mute. So if you're either able to hit the audio button in the lower left, or if somebody can prompt him to unmute.
I've prompted him to unmute, so assuming he's on a computer, he should be getting that flashing on the computer.
Okay, we're gonna go off the record. Here's what we're gonna do. Mr. McCann, if you can hear us, keep trying to unmute by pressing the audio button in your lower left. But Mr. Horst, would you be able to call Mr. McCann and see if you can help him get unmuted?
We will try to do that. Thank you,
Okay,
Commissioner.
we are off the record and in recess until we get Mr. McCann, at least on audio.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. McCann, I see you've gone off of mute. Can you hear me? This is Chair French.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, very well. And I assume you have not been able to connect to video. Do you have, just confirm, do you have any, like a little item that's covering your camera at the top of your screen? Do you know if your video is covered, Mr. McCann?
Oh, honestly, I don't know much about this. I have an assistant. So
There
Okay.
is no camera on this.
Oh, you don't have a camera. Okay, all right, that's fine. Well, we'll just be audio for Mr. McCann. That's how we'll proceed. So, Mr. McCann, Mr. Horst has already, well, I'm going to go back on the record. So we are back on the record in the evidentiary hearing. And Mr. Horst has already called Mr. McCann. So Mr. McCann, I'm going to swear you in at this time. I can't see you, but I'm going to trust that you're going to raise your right hand really high. And I'm going to ask you, do you swear or affirm the testimony you give today is the truth, the whole truth, or nothing but the truth?
Yes,
All right. With that, Mr. Horst, the witness is yours.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Doug McCann.
And are you the same Mark McCann who caused to be filed on May 2, 2025, 15 pages of direct and rebuttal testimony in the present proceeding
Yes, I am.
and one exhibit attached?
Yes,
Have you had an opportunity to review your pre-filed direct and rebuttal testimony?
yes, but I don't think I've seen the exhibit.
To refresh your recollection, the exhibit is a copy of the operating agreement.
Oh, okay, yes, yes.
You're
Yes, I
familiar with that?
got it. Yes, yes, I am.
Do you have any changes or corrections to make to your pre-filed direct and rebuttal testimony at this time? And do you swear that the direct and rebuttal testimony that you provided is true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, it is.
With that, I would offer the direct and rebuttal testimony of Mark McCann into evidence and tender the witness for cross-examination.
Are there any objections to admission of the reference testimony?
No objections.
All right, the testimony will be admitted. And Mr. Horst, did you tender your witness for cross?
I did.
Okay, all right. Mr. Marsh, do you have any cross-examination for this? Oh, well, actually, I have Emerson on here. Emerson, do you have any cross-examination? Okay, I assume not. Sorry for skipping you. Staff, do you have cross-examination for Mr. McCann?
Yes.
Okay, please proceed.
Thank you. Good after, or I guess it's still morning. Good morning, Mr. McCann. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay. Mr. McCann, you are the sole owner of Kansas Production Company, correct? Mr.
That
McCann,
is-
can you hear me?
yeah, that is correct.
Okay. And the basis behind these T1 forms is that Kansas Production Company wants Emerson Operating to run the DeArmond, McFarland DeLong, and Sears leases, correct?
Correct.
And as part of the basis, because Quito Inc. does not currently have a license.
That would be part of the basis, yes.
Is it your position that Emerson Operating would be acting as an independent contractor for Kansas Production Company?
Emerson Operating is an independent contractor for Kansas Production Company.
And you would agree with me that the DeArmond, McFarland DeLong, and Sears leases belong to Kansas Production Company, correct?
They- Yeah.
And as well as the wells on those leases would also belong to Kansas Production Company, correct?
Most of them.
I'm sorry, did you say most of them?
Most.
Okay. And then Emerson Operating will have no working interest in those three leases, correct?
Correct.
On page 2, line 7 of your testimony, you state that you have known Mr. Harper for many years, correct?
I might specify this. I've known him, but it's not like maybe I just saw him once or twice a year or so.
But on page 2, line 7 of your testimony, you state that you've known him for many years, correct?
I've known him, yes. I've known who he is for many.
And Mr. Harper has previously done work for companies that you own, correct?
Yes, he has.
Mr. McCann, are you able to see your computer screen?
See it?
Okay. I'm going to share what I've marked as Exhibit KCC Staff 1. Mr. McCann, can you see that exhibit?
Yes, I can now.
Okay. And that's an email from John Horst to me that you and Scott Getz are CC'd on, correct? Is that correct?
I think you're gonna have to make that a little bigger. I don't know if it's Kelsey or John that's sharing.
Mr. McCann, you're CC'd on that email, correct?
Yes, I'm reading.
Okay. And in that email, it states that Mr. Harper has no prior business associations with you or any of your companies. Is that correct?
I'm seeing it for the very first time right now. And, but that's obviously not correct.
Okay.
But the term business association, you know, we've never been in business together. He's had companies that have been in the contracting business for work for my businesses and also for many other operators.
When did you approach Mr. Harper about operating your wells?
I don't remember the exact date.
Would it have been around August or September 2024?
It may have been substantially before that. I just don't remember. I remember where we were at, but I don't remember the date.
On page 6 of your testimony, you discuss how there's a financial assurance responsibility that operators have when obtaining a license, correct?
That's correct.
And Kansas Production Company paid the license assurance fee for Emerson Operating, correct?
That is correct.
On page 7, line 17 through page 8, line 15, you testify that you intend to provide direction to Emerson Operating. Is that correct?
And the phrase direction, it could be replaced easily with the phrase advice or sharing knowledge. You know, on these particular 3 leases, you know, I've myself, businesses I've owned, have operated these leases for 35 wells, or 35 years, excuse me. They are leases that are under water flood. There's a whole lot of information to exchange about the effects of the water flood, which wells should be pumped in which fashion, and things of that nature. There's, in my mind, there's no way any operator could jump into leases like that without knowledge of the prior history.
On page 8, lines 15 through 17, you testify that Kansas Production Company furnishes Emerson Operating with nitrogen bottles, correct?
That would be correct. They, you know, they come from a supplier, and they are charged. They're charged to my business.
And those nitrogen bottles are used in order to conduct MIT tests, correct?
That's correct.
On page 9, lines 5 through 6 of your testimony, you state that Mr. Harper is very familiar with the manner in which MIT testing is performed, and he requires no direct or personal supervision in that regard. Is that correct?
He would need maybe a bit of data, but no, he understands the process.
However, on page 8, lines 10 through 11, you also testified that you communicated your views regarding the sequencing of testing. Is that correct?
The reason for that. And that reason is because we were doing these testing of multiple wells during rainy weather conditions. And so through my experience over these 35 years, I know where he can go and where he can't go in that environment. So I'm suggesting that we went to the ones that in my opinion and view, he would not get stuck at, as opposed to just going out them without consideration. Some of the roads are gravel to these wells, some are not. And so that is why I was discussing the sequence of where he should go, where it made me no difference. Our goal was to get them all tested.
Did Mr. Harper, would he contact you after an MIT test was done regarding whether the well passed or failed?
No. Typically, I got a written report, but I don't recall a specific. He certainly did not call me well by well by well. Our goal was, to get as many done as possible to keep the costs low. And if there was an issue or a question, perhaps he would call me. Not very many times did he'd go out. I wouldn't hear from him till the next day. Or later, maybe sometimes not even until I got his invoice, his company's invoice.
Okay. As part of the procedural process leading up to this hearing, you provided text messages in discovery to staff, correct?
Yes, we did.
And those text messages were between you and Mr. Harper?
I don't know that they exclusively between us, but in general, yeah.
I'm going to share my screen with what's been marked as KCC staff 2. And this is page 61 of 110. Mr. McCann, do you see that screen?
I do.
Okay. And at the top, it says Joe Harper.
Yes.
Okay. And on a text message dated Wednesday, November 13th at 11:13 a.m., there's a message from Mr. Harper to you saying that the Kirshner passed.
That's correct.
And that he's moving to the Smith Lawley.
Right.
And then he later sent a message to you November 13th at 2:46 saying that the Smith Lawley number 2 passed. Is that correct? Mr. McCann, is that correct?
That is correct.
And sorry, if you're answering, I apologize. I wasn't hearing it, so I'm making sure that we have a complete record. On page 10, lines 11 through 13, you testified that you do not believe it is necessary and do not anticipate the need to micromanage Emerson Operating, correct?
No, I don't think that. No, I do not. That is correct.
Okay. I'm going to share exhibit KCC staff 3, which I believe is additional text messages that were furnished in discovery between Mr. McCann and Mr. Harper. Mr. McCann, do you see this screen? Does it say Joe Harper at the top?
Yes.
Okay. And this is page 6 of 80. Mr. McCann, does it say, please come to my shop at 9 to load some unit tools and head to the bow ring? Scott will be here ready to go with you. The goal is to lay it out tomorrow and test on Friday and get running between Friday and Saturday. Is that correct? Did I read that correctly?
Just 1 minute, please. That is correctly, but this has nothing to do with operations in Kansas. This was in Osage County, Oklahoma.
Moving down to page 11 of exhibit KCC 3, is there a message from Saturday, January 25th at 11:59 a.m. that says, please try to locate you a helper. We have 4 or more tank batteries to build. Is that correct?
Yeah. Osage County. And that's Osage County, Oklahoma, not Osage County, Kansas.
Correct. Are there similar text messages between you and Mr. Harper regarding the leases in Kansas?
The one you originally showed was kind of him at the end of the day, kind of filling me in on how things went. But I don't recall all the text messages. It's, the phone goes all day.
Did you ask Mr. Harper to send you a report at the end of each day?
I don't recall asking him to do that.
I'm once again going to share my screen. This is exhibit KCC staff 2, page 103. Mr. McCann, do you see that page that has Joe Harper listed at the top?
Yes.
And on Friday, December 20th at 7:25 p.m., did you say, please send the report at the end of each day? Thank you.
Or I had him for a brief period of time supervising a polling unit running in Osage County, Oklahoma.
Mr. McCann, is it true that Kansas Production Company executed an agreement with Emerson Operating in September 2024?
I believe that was the date.
And that agreement is attached to your testimony?
Yes.
And on page 12, lines 11 through 12, you testify that for a single operation, Emerson may not incur expenses in excess of $5,000 without Kansas Production Company's approval. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And as part of that operating agreement, Kansas Production Company pays for all of Emerson Operating's expenses regarding the operation of the leases. Is that correct?
Regarding the operation of the leases, yes.
On page 13, line 16 through page 14, line 1, you testify that the primary economic interest of Kansas Production Company is to place the leases in production so that they produce oil in sufficient quantities to pay operating expenses and generate a profit. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And that is the purpose behind contacting Mr. Harper to obtain license. Is that correct?
Yes, the state of Kansas requires a licensed operator. So I wanted to hire somebody, a company that was qualified to do that.
On page 14, lines 1 through 4, you testified that the primary interest of Emerson Operating is to provide labor, equipment, and services to operate the leases and bill operating expenses to Kansas Production Company. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct.
However, you previously testified that Kansas Production Company provides nitrogen bottles to conduct for Emerson Operating to conduct MIT testing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you've also asked Mr. Harper what equipment or materials he may need from time to time. Is that correct?
I recall he would ask me from time to time of something he needed. But he's also bought them independent of me. And so it's standard all business.
For the things that he's bought, you've reimbursed him, correct?
Some things, minor things he would just do.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that last answer, Mr. McCann. Did you say minor things he would just do?
Yes.
Okay,
He just
thank
had
you.
something at low cost. I may never hear about it.
I'm going to share KCC staff 2 on my screen again. This is page 25 of 110. Mr. McCann, do you see that page?
Yeah.
And at the bottom it says, if more pipe is needed, call me. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
I want to scroll down to page 48 of
But
110.
let me comment about that text. That's from a well in Washington County, Oklahoma.
Sorry, I lost you again, Mr. McCain. You said that's from a well in Washington County and then something else.
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Okay.
Yes.
Mr. McCann, on page 48, there's a text message that says, okay, we'll set liner and pump on back of red Ford with a white fender. Also belts for pump jack. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
Scrolling down to page 98 of 110.
Again, that is for a separate well in Washington County, Oklahoma.
On page 98 of 110, there's a text from you that says, okay, give me the pump and I will return it. If you have a problem, again, call me and I'll straighten it out. Did I read that correctly?
Oh, right. Yeah, that was a fuel pump for one of my pulling units. It failed, and yeah, we were trying to get it replaced.
Mr. McCann, you also helped Emerson Operating obtain labor. Is that correct?
Labor is in extreme short supply in southeastern Kansas and northeastern Oklahoma. So yeah, these guys are not dependable, show up one day, the next. So Joe tried to get the employees he needed, but sometimes we would share that effort due to the availability of person.
An example that I believe is on page 54 of exhibit KCC staff 2. Mr. McCann, can you see that page?
Yes.
There's a text from Mr. Harper that says, I have a MIT tomorrow morning. KCC man want to do as many as we can tomorrow. I will need help. Can shop man bring bottles up there and help me? And you responded, yes, shop man will deliver bottles to you, meet you at location and help you and ask for a time. Did I read that correctly?
That's correct.
And scroll down to page 61 of 110. You asked Mr. Harper if he needed any of your guys tomorrow to help at the rig. Is that correct?
Um, yes, again, that has nothing to do with anything between Kansas Production Company and Emerson. It's in the state of April.
Message above it's about the Smith Lowell number 2, correct?
Correct.
And that's a Kansas well, correct?
That is yes, that is well in Kansas.
And then Mr. Harper's message after that discusses working with the KCC, which would also be Kansas wells, correct?
According what he did a particular day and day. You've got to understand, we're trying to work. Harper's company is a contractor, and they're doing work for us on a day-by-day basis as and where it is needed. You know, weather's another factor, etc.
Thank you. I don't believe I have any further questions.
All right. Thank you, Mr.
guess-
Marsh. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Chair French. I'm sorry to interrupt. I apologize. I would move to admit exhibits KCC staff 1, KCC staff 2, and KCC staff 3 into the record.
Are there any objections?
No objections from Quito.
Emerson?
Yeah, no objections.
Okay. The referenced exhibits will be admitted. Okay, with that, we will turn to commissioner questions. Commissioner Keither, do you have any questions of this witness? Okay, I have just a quick question, Mr. McCann. This is Chair French. I don't know if you can see me. In Mr. Hoffman's testimony, he talks about the operating agreement and the fact that the operating agreement between Kansas Production and Emerson states that all costs and liabilities incurred in operations under this agreement shall be, well, his assumption is that they shall be paid by Kansas Production Company. Is that correct?
Yes, that's the owner is responsible to pay the operating cost.
And later in his testimony, the staff asserts that Kansas Production Company paid Emerson's financial assurance for along with the T1 forms. Is that correct?
Yes, it pursuant to our contract.
So also under sort of all costs and liabilities, is Kansas Production Company paying for Emerson's legal costs associated with this proceeding?
That I know. No,
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
I think the answer is no.
So you
We're
don't
paying-
expect. Go ahead, Mr. McCann. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
We're paying Quito's expenses.
But Mr. Harper will be paying his own legal expenses in this case?
Absolutely. He has his own business. He has his own.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Yes.
If you could just repeat.
He has his own business and his own attorney.
Okay, so that does not fall under the all costs and expenses under the operating agreement.
No.
Okay, all right. I think that was really the only question I had for you, Mr. McCann. So at this time, I will turn back to Mr. Horst. Do you have any redirect?
Just a brief question, Mr. McCann. Prior to entering into the operating agreement with Emerson Operating LLC, had you or any of your entities had any partnerships or other business associations with Mr. Harper in relation to oil and gas operations?
No business associations like this, a partner, stockholder, and nothing at all. He's only been contractor for us collectively.
So independent contractor was the sole business relationship.
Yes.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
All right. With that, let's see where we are on my schedule here. Is there any need for recross from any of the parties? Yeah, I'm seeing a no. Okay. All right, then I think we are concluded with Mr. McCann. We do thank you for your testimony today, and you may virtually step down. And you might just hit the mute button so we don't get audio from your end. Thank you very much. All right, with that, we will now move on to our final party. We're ready for Emerson's witness. Miss Aspen, if you would call your witness.
Yes, and how would you like me to do it? Do you want it to where we're both on the screen, or do you want me just to put Mr. Harper on the screen? We just have one computer for audio purposes, but I don't know which you prefer.
Why don't you try to get both of you on the screen? I know that can sometimes be a little difficult.
We'll get really close to one another.
But it's helpful if we can see both of you, and that way it might pick both of you up. And then if we have to, once we get to the point where Mr. Harper is just being questioned, we may just have him go on screen by himself. But hopefully this works. So why don't you, I know it's always a little awkward, but go ahead and try to do your direct here with both of you.
Sure. Thank you, Chair French. Mr. Harper, will you state your full name and address for the record?
Joe Harper. Address is 527 East Gaylor in Nowata, Oklahoma.
Thank you, Mr. Harper. And are you the same Mr. Harper that caused to be filed the 6 pages of pre-filed direct and rebuttal testimony in this matter on May 2nd, 2025?
Yes.
Okay. Have you had a chance to review that testimony?
Yes.
Do you have any corrections or changes to that testimony?
No.
You testify that that testimony is still a true and correct copy of your testimony today?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I would then offer Mr. Harper's pre-filed direct and rebuttal testimony into evidence and tender Mr. Harper for cross-examination.
All right. Are there any objections to admitting the reference testimony?
No objections.
Hearing none, it will be admitted. And Mr. Harper's been tendered for cross. So I am assuming Quito does not have questions for Mr. Harper, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, then we will proceed to staff. And Miss Aspen, if you'd like to just go ahead and turn the computer to Mr. Harper just so we can get him in full screen, that may be easier.
Yes, if you can't hear me, just let me know, but I'll try to speak loudly.
Very good. You're still coming through pretty well. So we will go ahead and move to staff. Do you have cross-examination for Mr. Harper?
Yes, Chair French.
Go ahead.
All right. Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Harper.
Good morning.
Mr. Harper, Emerson Operating was formed with the Kansas Secretary of State on September 17th, 2024, correct?
Correct.
Mr. Harper, when did you first talk to Mr. McCann about forming an operating company for him?
Latter part of August of 24 and into the first part of September of 24.
And Emerson Operating entered an agreement with Mr. McCann, Mr. McCann's Kansas Production Company on September 17th, 2024, correct?
That's correct.
And that's the same date that Emerson Operating was formed in the state of Kansas?
Yes.
Who drafted that operating agreement?
Mr. Horst.
Okay. Did you have an attorney review that operating agreement before signing it?
Oh.
On page 3, lines 9 through 12 of your testimony, you state, I did not have a great impression of him then, as he did not want to pay because he wanted the junk that we would clean up around the well site. It seemed like an excuse for him not to pay or request a reduction of the bill, correct?
That's correct.
And the he that you're referring to is Mr. McCann, is that correct?
Yes,
Now, under the agreement, Kansas Production Company is responsible for reimbursing you for your costs, is that correct?
that's correct.
Um, Now, the last bank statement that was provided by Kansas Production Company shows that there's around $105 in its account. Does that cause you to have any concerns about being reimbursed for your work on these leases?
Somewhat.
Have you ever had issues receiving payments from Mr. McCann?
Some.
Okay.
He likes to negotiate.
And have you communicated with Mr. McCann when you have not received payments?
Yes.
I'm going to pull up Exhibit KCC Staff 2, page 74. Mr. Harper, do you see that screen in front of you?
Yes.
Okay. And on a text message to Mr. McCann on November 19th at 12:25 p.m., you told him that you still hadn't received your check for last week's MIT on wells. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And later on, I'm scrolling down to page 83. On Friday, December 13th at 7:46 p.m., you asked Mr. McCann how's the money issue, correct?
That's correct.
And either you or the companies that you worked for previously conducted work for Mr. McCann, is that correct?
Yes.
I believe in your testimony, you talk about whenever you're working for Bellport and then a time that you were working after JH Field Services. Is that correct?
Correct.
And on page 14, or excuse me, page 4, lines 16 through 17, you testify that Mr. McCann contacted you in mid-2023 and asked if you're still pulling wells, correct?
That's correct.
And then later on page 4, lines 19 through 20, you testified that you had had enough of him after about a year, let the crew go and stop doing any work for him, correct?
That's correct.
So that would have been around mid-2024?
Not quite sure what date it would be.
Okay. Well, if you started doing work for him in mid-2023 and worked for him for about a year, would that push things out to about mid-2024?
Yes.
Okay. So then why did you turn right around in August and September of 2024 and agree to form Emerson Operating for him?
We had a long conversation about availability of funds being in place as submitted. I do an estimate of what it's going to take to bring each of the 3 leases one at a time up into compliance, and then that amount of money be available before we start the work. And he agreed to that. And we could ask for advances. We could and based upon estimates, and then submit invoices to either get the extra money that it costs, or just an accounting of the funds and in invoice form from Emerson to Quito or Kansas Production.
How often would you send Mr. McCann invoices?
Yes, I would. Yes, that's what I would do. But you're speaking of Emerson, right?
Yes. How long or how often does Emerson send invoices to Mr. McCann?
We haven't sent any yet.
What about you individually?
Individually, yes, I have.
And I guess, you know, in Mr. McCann's testimony, and I think maybe yours, talks about Emerson Operating acting as an independent contractor for Quito in order to MIT wells, correct?
I think not necessarily as Emerson, but as me personally.
So I'm going to pull up. Are you familiar with Mr. McCann's testimony at all?
I listened to it, yes.
Okay. Did you read his pre-file testimony before the hearing today?
No.
I'm going to share my screen. This is page 7 of Mr. McCann's testimony. Can you see that, Mr. Harper?
I can.
Okay. On page 7, lines 14 through 16, it says that Quito Inc. had hired Emerson Operating LLC as an independent contractor to interact with KCC staff in scheduling and performing MIT tests. Did I read that correctly?
You did.
Okay. But you're testifying today.
What was that date?
Whenever you say what was that date,
Yes.
there's a February 28th, 2025 date that's above that question.
Okay, well, that's possible that it was sent from Emerson.
So did Emerson not send invoices to Mr. McCann when conducting the MIT work?
Yes.
And Emerson Operating received an operator's license from the KCC around October 7th, 2024, correct?
That's correct.
And the reason that you formed that company was because Mr. McCann asked you, correct?
Correct.
So if Mr. McCann had never asked you to operate these leases for him, Emerson Operating would never have been formed. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Emerson Operating has not sought to add wells to its license from other operators. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And the resident agent of Emerson Operating is Mr. Horst. Is that correct?
Correct.
Why did you not ask Mr. Horst to represent you in this matter?
Thought it might be conflict.
Okay. And how were you introduced to Miss Aspen?
Through Mr. Horst.
Okay. Do you know if Mr. McCann's had any conversations with Miss Aspen?
My knowledge.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. I want to pull up exhibit KCC staff 3. I believe page 14. Mr. Harper, can you see the text messages on the screen?
Yes.
And that's your name at the top?
Yes.
Okay, on Thursday, January 30th at 6:35 p.m., there was a message from Mr. McCann that says, "I will call you tomorrow morning. I had a meeting with Horst and another lawyer named Molly Aspen. When I call you tomorrow, I'll bring you up to speed. Thank you. Talk tomorrow." Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
Has Mr. McCann ever directed you to call Miss Aspen?
No.
Once again, I'm going to share exhibit KCC staff 3, page 38 of 80. On Tuesday, February 11th at 8:04 p.m. It looks like you gave kind of a daily update to Mr. McCann. Is that correct? And then afterwards, Mr. McCann said, "Please call after to talk to Molly." Did I read that correctly? Mr. Robert, did I read that correctly?
Yes.
So there are 3 leases that you're looking to transfer to Emerson Operating's license, correct?
That's correct.
And that's the DeArmond, McFarland DeLong, and Sears leases.
Yes.
And you selected those leases because they have the best wells and fewest problems. Is that correct?
Those were the leases that were identified by Mark and Mr. Horst.
So you had conversations with Mr. McCann and Mr. Horst regarding the leases that Emerson Operating would be transferring to its license.
Yes.
Who filled out the T1 forms?
Mr. Horst's office.
So did you go into his office and then sign the forms?
No, it wasn't. It was Mark McCann's secretary.
Okay. When you sent in the T1 forms for the DeArmond, McFarland DeLong, and Sears leases, you also sent in a check for $1,800 as financial assurance. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I'm going to share my screen. This is exhibit NB-2, page 2 of 26. Mr. Harper, is that check for $1,800? Is that yes?
Yes.
And that check is dated October 29th, 2024, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Harper, did you receive a payment from Mr. McCann that same date for $1,800?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to pull up exhibit RH4, page 10 of 20. I gotta zoom in a little bit because it's close, but Mr. Harper, is that a copy of that check?
Yes.
And it's also dated 10/29/24.
Yes.
And that check says for surety.
Yes.
Chair, or Mr. Just to clarify, had you sent this to us previously? Or are you
Yes, it
calling
would
it
have
R4?
It would have been included as exhibit RH4 to Ryan Hoffman's testimony.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I wasn't sure what you're saying with RH4. Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, that's how we document the
Yeah.
exhibits that we attach.
Okay.
Mr. Harper, on page 5, line 20 of your testimony, you state that you would absolutely be the operator of the leases. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And on page 5, lines 12 through 13, you said, I also made it clear with Mark that I would be operating the wells and have full control. Is that correct?
Correct.
What equipment does Emerson Operating have to conduct MITs on the leases?
Just the plumbing and the using nitrogen bottles.
And the nitrogen bottles come from Kansas Production Company. Is that correct?
Well, I picked them up at the I can't remember their name. It's in Sedan. Picked the bottles up there, and some from it's the same company, but there's one there in Bartlesville where we can get nitrogen.
You've asked Mr. McCann to have bottles delivered to you before, correct?
He has.
What equipment does Emerson Operating have to run the pump jacks on the leases?
I've got 2 well service rigs. I've got a backhoe, fusion machines, welders, whatever. Yeah, I've been involved in production since 1976. Yeah.
Has Mr. McCann ever offered to send his guys to help you work on wells?
Yes.
Have you ever seen Mr. McCann micromanage your work?
Oh, he tried. I told him he could not do that to me.
Okay. I'm gonna pull up exhibit KCC staff 3, page 36 of 80. Mr. Harper, can you see that page?
Yes.
It has your name at the top.
Yes.
And there's a text message from you to Mr. McCann saying you don't like to be micromanaged. Is that correct?
That's right.
And Mr. McCann, previously before that, had said pipe testers are heading to the rig. Please call when you get to the shop. One is not coming in today until 9. And have you contacted the Lighthouse Fellows? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Are there other instances where Mr. McCann has micromanaged your work in these text messages?
I'm sure he had tried.
I'm going to go to page 40 of exhibit KCC staff 2. Mr. Harper, you see that page?
Yes.
And there's a text message from Monday, November 4th at 10:49 a.m. that says, good morning. What is the status of the Robinson #1? What kind of pump did it have? And please describe the mud anchor. Also, what depth to pump. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Scroll down to page 56 of 110. Probably around November 12th at 10:20 a.m. There's a message from Mr. McCann to you that says that he will call you to review tomorrow's MIT test. Is that correct?
Yes.
Scrolling down to page 101 about. There's a message from Mr. McCann that says, do you have everything to run rods? And asked about wrenches and elevators. Is that correct?
I think that's on the, when I was supervising, his crew on his rig, make sure they had the right tools.
And he asked you to pick up a pump from the red shop.
Where's that at? Oh, I see it.
Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, that's right.
And on page 103, Mr. McCann asked you to please send a report at the end of each day. Is that correct?
Yes,
And that message was around Friday, December 20th at 7:25 p.m.
yes.
Flipping over to KCC staff 3, and go to page 15 of that exhibit. Mr. Harper, you see that page?
On January 31st or February 1st?
At around 9:27 p.m. on Friday, January 31st. You sent a
Yes.
message to Mr. McCann saying that you have a list of wells to MIT in February, and he asked for you to
Yes.
send him a copy of the list when convenient, correct?
Yes,
I'm gonna scroll down to page 55. This is a text message from Tuesday, February 18th at 12:57, correct?
yes.
And that message says, how did it go yesterday? How many wells were tested? How many bottles of nitrogen were used? And what is planned for next day? Also on Smith Lawley number 5, what is the date when you tested it and ran out of nitrogen? He also asked you to schedule the Morton 3 next, as it has a deadline February 19th. To cut $1,000 fine. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
And then on page 58, he'd around Tuesday, February 18th at 3:20 p.m., Mr. McCann asked you to please get the Morton 3 scheduled today or in the morning if closed, and send it, and for you to send a text to Thad. Is that accurate?
Where you said talk to Thad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At that-
KCC office. He's on, it says he is on for Friday to do the Lolly and the Morton. Is that the one you're referring to?
That's fine. I was kind of referring to the text message from Mr. McCann at the top of the page, Tuesday, February 18th, where he's asking you to get the Morton 3 scheduled.
Okay.
And to send it for you to contact Thad.
Yeah, that's correct. And on the 24th, I did a pre-test on the Morton number 3, plus two other, no, on Morton number 3, and checked fluid levels on 2 other wells that was there, injection wells, and set that then that was the 24th, and then we never got to the actual MIT.
Gotcha. And the Thad that's being referred to in that text message, that's Thad AAA, correct?
Yes.
And he's a ECRS for the KCC.
Yes.
Did Mr. McCann ever tell you, are there other times where Mr. McCann told you to contact Thad to schedule an MIT?
Yeah. Yes, I'm sure he did.
Okay.
I talked to Thad several times.
I'm going to share exhibit KCC staff 2 again. This is page 45. Mr. Harper, you see that page?
Yes,
Okay. And on that page, Mr. McCann sends you that's contact information. Is that correct?
yes,
And he also asked you to call Thad and get a plan where to meet and said that the test is scheduled for 1 o'clock today. Is that yes?
yes,
Okay. And then there's later a text message from Mr. McCann saying that it's raining in Sedan, and he asked you to, or said that it'd probably be best to reschedule with that. Is that correct?
that's correct.
I'm going to switch back to exhibit KCC staff 3 and go to page 14. On Thursday, January 30th at 6:35 p.m., did Mr. McCann send you a text message that said, please cancel with that tomorrow? It's too wet to do any of the wells except for 14. And it's not worth the trip for only one well. Is that correct? Is that yes?
Yes,
I'm going to go down to page 51. On Sunday, February 16th, around 7:23, Mr. McCann told you that if he can get you a helper, could you go and test? I'm going to guess it's the Flossie White, number 14, McFarland 7, and finish the Smith Lawley, number 5. And then at the bottom of that message, he said, or page, he asked you to be sure to contact Thad. Is that correct?
that's correct.
And then scroll down to page 53 of 80. On Monday, February 17th at 8:12 a.m., Mr. McCann sent you a message saying good morning and asked if you had reached out to Thad and if you're on track for today. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Harper, what resources does Emerson have to maintain a proper care and control of these wells if they are transferred to its license?
Just constant, checking and repair and overlooking the production.
If a well needs to be plugged, what finances does Emerson have to plug the well?
Well, finances would come from Kansas production company.
Okay. And the same would be the case if you needed to drill a well.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay.
All right. I think we are ready for commissioner questions. Commissioner Ether, do you have any questions? I'm seeing a no. I've got a couple questions. Mr. Harper, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us today. Couple items. So, let me get my thoughts straight real quick. I assume you were here with us when I was asking some questions about Mr. McCann about the operating agreement, and I asked him, what sort of costs he was reimbursing you for, and he did agree that he had paid for the financial assurance, which you also talked about with Mr. Marsh, and then I asked him whether he would be reimbursing you for your costs that you've incurred in this proceeding, since it's sort of related to this enterprise. And I specifically asked about your legal costs. I think Mr. McCann indicated that he was not going to pay for those, or that those would be your costs. But I wanted to check with you. Was it your expectation that you would be able to get reimbursed for your legal costs of this proceeding from Mr. McCann or Kansas Production Company?
Yes,
Okay.
it's in the operating agreement.
Yeah, that was sort of how I was reading it, but there appears to be a difference of opinion. Have you so also just associated with this proceeding, are you substantially out of pocket any costs at all yet?
Just time.
Just time, okay. Along the lines of what Mr. Marsh was just asking you about, I think you had a discussion about, whatever pops up and needs to be done on these leases, the cost of that would need to flow from Mr. McCann, correct?
Correct.
So if you are as an operator, you'll have compliance obligations, correct?
That's correct.
So if there were some sort of dispute between you and Mr. McCann, or you had trouble getting reimbursement from costs, or you have a disagreement over what costs he would pay for, do you think you would still be able to keep everything in compliance or bring things into compliance, even if there was a disagreement over his willingness to reimburse you for those costs?
Yes.
So even if you were not receiving capital or reimbursement from Mr. McCann, you would have the financial ability to cover all your compliance obligations?
Yes, but they would be billed, all the expenses would be billed back to Kansas Production. But
okay. I had just this is unrelated, one other cleanup question. I think Mr. Marsh asked you a question. Oh, actually, let me ask you one final question in that same vein. As we were talking about sort of Emerson's ability to stay in compliance, even if there was a dispute or an unwillingness to reimburse from KPC. What assets does Emerson have to fulfill those obligations aside from just your equipment?
no, we're not without some funds, but I don't intend to take a chance on not being paid. A person can always, file a lien against the production income, and I don't like to do that, but it's something you can do.
So when you say there are some funds, are those Emerson's funds in Emerson's account, or those are yours personally?
Mine personally.
Okay. I think that's good. The only other cleanup question I had, and this is just purely cleanup, I think Mr. Marsh was asking you about a text message chain and asked you whether Mr. McCann had ever told you to call your attorney, Ms. Aspen. And I think he directed you to a text message that said, call Molly. I just wanted to confirm that that was referencing Ms. Aspen.
Yes, that was
okay.
Referencing her, but I think that's after a conversation with Mark and Mr. Horst, okay. and then they give me the contact information.
I just wanted to make sure I understood it correctly and there wasn't some other some other Molly involved here. It was just purely for me. So I think that's all I have for you. At this time, we will give an opportunity for redirect, and I know it's a little difficult again now with both of you in the same room, but if you can turn the computer back,
I will
we can
try
get
to
both
come
of
back
you.
in here, and actually, I will make it very easy because I do not believe I have any redirect.
Very good. Did the commissioner questions prompt any need for additional cross-examination?
My only question, Commissioner French, is whether Mr. Harper has any doubt in his mind that Emerson Operating LLC will be able to operate the leases independent of influence of Mr. McCann or Kansas Production Company, Inc.
Yes, the only contact that I would deem necessary would be that of lease history, well records. You know, if you're working on a well, you kind of like to know where it's completed and have the right information to provide the right kind of pumps and you know, the tracking of flow lines and that Mark would have the knowledge of where that stuff is on each of these leases. And that kind of information would be necessary to do a job properly and without waste.
Thank you. That's the only question I have.
Staff, any additional cross-examination?
I think so, Chair French, just to kind of follow up on your line of questioning regarding the financial statements or finances. Mr. Harper, as part of the discovery of this process, did you provide bank statements from Emerson Operating to KCC staff?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't mark this exhibit because I wasn't planning for it, so if I need to do that later, we can. But
Okay.
Mr. Harper, is this a copy of one of those bank statements?
Yes.
And that's dated, the ending balance date is October 31st, 2024, correct?
That's correct.
And it shows negative $184 in the bank account. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then I know there's others that are here. It looks like November 30th, 2024, the ending balance was $200. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Sorry, I'll try to zoom in a little bit just to make sure. With the ending balance from 12/31/2024, it's an ending balance of $34.73. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And January 31st, 2025, the ending balance was $64.43. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then for February 2028, the ending balance was negative $24.63. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that is all of the bank statements that you provided as part of discovery. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Chair French, I don't know if you'd like those documents to be admitted into the formal record or not. I can mark those as KCC staff for and send them to share them with the parties if you'd like.
I can go either way, but you've had the testimony on it, but perhaps in interest of the full record, marking them and moving to admit would be best.
Okay. Staff, so moved.
Are there any objections?
I guess I might object. I mean, just to relevance, this was respect to Emerson's bank statements. And I think the questioning was about both Emerson and Mr. Harper personally.
Mr. Marsh, you want to respond?
Yeah,
On relevance?
we talk about, I know that Mr. Horst has taken the position of like separate entities and that sort of thing. And I know that your question was specifically about Emerson Operating and its ability to be be financially capable of taking care of issues on the lease. So I think that they are relevant from that perspective.
Yeah, I'll overrule the objection and admit the exhibit. All right. Mr. Marsh, you are done with recross?
Yes, Chair French.
Are there any additional commissioner questions before I allow a final chance for redirect? Okay, I have no additional questions. Ms. Aspen, any final redirect? Okay.
No redirect.
All right. Well, then with that, Mr. Harper, we do thank you for your time and testimony today, and you may virtually step down.
Thank you.
Meaning I'll move the computer over. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. All right, with that, we have concluded all of our witness examination. We are very quickly nearing the noon hour, but I think we can go ahead and wrap this up. I think that would be in everybody's best interest. Is everybody good to proceed to closing statements, or does anyone request an additional break? All right, if I'm not hearing any requests for a break, we're just going to move. We will now move to closing statements. Again, no time limits. If everyone can just be succinct and speaking to the issues today. So we will begin with Mr. Horst.
Thank you, Commissioner French. I'd indicated to the presiding officer in our pre-hearing conference that I'd like an opportunity to submit a brief to the commission once the transcript's been prepared. And I'll expound upon my closing comments in that brief if allowed to submit. I think that it'll come to no surprise to the commission that Quito, the position of Quito Inc. and Kansas Production Company Inc. is that staff's opposition to the transfer is based not upon statutory or regulatory provisions that exist and establish concrete criteria to oppose the transfer, but upon equitable policy concerns that candidly we respectfully submit are getting outside of the bounds of proper conduct of authority of the commission. And that most of the testimony in this case has been directed toward those concerns, where we draw lines, what the guardrails are, what factors govern this type of issue are ill-defined, and I don't know where that road leads us. And because of that, we're requesting that the commission find that the transfer should be approved since they comply with statutes and regulations. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Aspen.
Yes, and I again would reiterate if we submit a closing brief or a brief following this to provide additional statements there. Again, won't repeat everything, but essentially just echo Mr. Horst's argument on behalf of KPC that the staff's opposition to transfer isn't based on any statutory requirements. However, even if it were, depending on where the line were drawn, I would contend that Emerson and Mr. Harper have the sufficient financial resources, abilities, skills, expertise in order to operate these 3 leases.
All right, thank you. And finally, Mr. Marsh.
Thank you, Chair French. I'll try to be as brief as I can. Mr. Horst focuses a lot on the economic side of things. I think that is a essential aspect for the commission to consider, but I think it also goes beyond that. Mr. McCann testified earlier today that these will still be his wells. So I think that's one specific issue. And basically, he found Emerson to operate these wells for him. In his testimony, talked about how Emerson's Operating's primary interest is to provide labor, equipment, and services to operate the leases and bill operating expenses to Kansas Production Company. However, I feel like the text messages show more than just a economical interest there. You see a similarity in Emerson Operating using equipment from Kansas Production Company and using labor from Kansas Production Company in order to operate these leases. So I think it's more than just an economic relationship. Based off of the information that's been provided, I don't know that staff is satisfied that Emerson Operating is going to be able to operate these leases without Mr. McCann's money, guidance, or direction. And for these reasons, well, before that, it almost still goes back to that the previous transfers between Quito and Thor, where the commission determined there to be a non-existent difference between the two companies. And I don't know that staff is satisfied that that isn't the case here. There still appears to be effectively a non-existent difference between Emerson Operating and Mark McCann, Quito Inc., Kansas Production Company. So we would respectfully request that the T1s be denied. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Marsh. Yes, we will now move to discussion of any post-hearing issues, including briefing. I do understand it does sound like the parties are interested in briefing issues in this case. So what I would suggest is a briefing schedule that looks like this. We don't have the transcript yet, so we're going to probably have to work off of that date. So I would suggest we'll do initial briefs from all the parties 21 days after the transcript is received, and then an opportunity for a responsive brief 14 days after the initial briefs. My understanding is these transcripts usually come in within a couple weeks of the hearing date, and they'll come to Mr. Myers, the pre-hearing officer, and then he will provide that to the parties. That way, we're all working off the same date for filing your initial briefs. If there's any confusion, just talk to Mr. Myers about that. So once he gets the transcript, he'll get it to you 21 days to file an initial brief and 14 days to file a responsive brief to the other parties. I'm not going to establish any time limits. I think the issues in this case are pretty limited. So I would hope they can be pretty succinct briefing. So any other post-hearing issues before we conclude the hearing? I'm not hearing anything.
No.
All right. Well, thank you all for your time. This does conclude our hearing in this docket. At this time, we will close the record and adjourn. Thank you all for your participation. We're off the record.
Thank you.
Thank you.